Welcome, everybody. I want to serve a little bit as moderator till we get going. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Teresa Piva-Weed, and I'm the Senate President, but today I'm facilitating the beginning of the Art Charrette until we can let the guy that knows the arts, Randy Rosenbaum, take over. Hopefully those of you who are in the design community don't mind that we took a little bit of liberty with the word charrette. But it captures, I think, the idea that our plan for action will benefit from all of the very best input and ideas that I believe we'll hear today. Through the collective participation and discussion that's going to come out, I believe that we can come up with a shared vision for the industry. One of the problems is, whether we're talking about business or any particular economic development plan, we tend to each look at our own individual project, our own individual piece. And the thought was, by bringing everyone together today, we're not just talking about film tax credits, we're not just talking about museums, we're not just talking about the performing arts, but we're talking about all of the arts. And the state does make many contributions to the arts. Speaker Fox has been perhaps one of the strongest advocates for water fires. We are the home to RISD. And while some people have questioned why we're at Fidelity, you'll find that out very shortly too. But all of us, I hope, will come together, this combination of government, business, nonprofits, academia, and the creative community, to leave here with ideas that we can act upon. I also want to, at this point, take time to recognize our valuable partners in the Charrette's Planning Committee. We had Caitlin Thomas Henkel, Mary Kim Arnold from the Rhode Island Foundation, Randy Rosenbaum of the Arts Council, and John Mudridge, of course, from Fidelity, who's our host. Thank you to each and every one of you. Of course, we all want to acknowledge the performers who will entertain us again that are performing in the front room. I know when I met with some local artists and this idea was first coming to a surface, one of the first things they said is, well, we have to have artists participating in an active role. And in fact, we are very lucky. We have, based from Rhode Island, of course, Aubrey Atwater and Elwood Donnelly, who have been performing for 25 years. They've produced 6 books, a film, and 12 recordings that receive international airplay. Our appreciation goes to the I'm going to say that correctly this time, Atwater Donnelly Band for participating today. Thank you. I really am looking forward to the diverse group of individuals that we have here today. Each and every one of you contribute to the rich quality of life that we share in our state, and I know each of you care about making our state a better place. After some opening remarks and some information on the state's investment in the arts, because once again, I have committed that everything, and you've heard the speaker say it and the governor say it, everything we do has to be with economic development first and foremost in our minds. That we're going to hear from the fiscal people, and we look forward to hearing from you through focused discussions as to what direction and what the plan should be as we move forward. So together, I think that we can help Rhode Island become the nation's first distinctive state for the arts. With that, I'm pleased to begin the program today with someone who is known for his love and commitment to the arts, and who has committed to leadership in this arena. And I feel a little bit like I'm throwing a party, so help me and give a warm welcome to the governor of our state, Governor Lincoln Chafee, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is your initiative, and a very good one indeed. I'd also like to thank Fidelity for hosting us, and John Mugridge, thank you very much for all you do for the arts and for hosting us here. There's a speaking program, and then we'll get to the real business of getting your ideas and seeing how we can grow the economy in Rhode Island around the arts. We're lucky to have world-class institutions and artists in our state, and have for centuries here in Rhode Island. So this is a natural to grow on, and great initiative, President Piva-Weed and Speaker Fox, to get us together to see how we can further maximize this asset that we have in our state. Just like to say personally, in my elected time, I've been very committed to the arts, even as mayor, when they came and said, we want to put some cell phone receptors up on your water towers. We had 2 rusted old water towers in Warwick. I said, well, you can put them up there, but first you have to paint them. They're all rusted, ugly things towering over our city, and they did. They said, we need to have a tower to put our cell phone devices up, and so for all the other communities out there, if someone wants to do something, get something in return. And when we rebuilt our library, I think we have one of the best municipal public art projects anywhere in the state at our public library in Warwick, a quahogger statue. It's beautiful. If you ever go down Sandy Lane and want to circle behind our library, our new library in Warwick, renovated library, there's a gorgeous quahogger statue. And can contemplate peacefully in the landscaping that was done around it. The truth is that the New England Foundation for the Arts reported that direct and indirect spending by the nonprofit arts totaled $673 million and supported nearly 8,000 jobs. And in 2002, the American for the Arts put combined non- and for-profit arts employment at over 12,000 people. It's a big part of our economy. We should be growing it. And the Americans for the Arts also found that the economic impact of the arts in the city of Providence alone was greater than that of a number of states, such as Delaware, Hawaii, South Dakota, New Hampshire. So we are an epicenter of the arts, and we should be growing it. And with President Maida here, a natural growth should be in the designs, Rhode Island School of Design for years, nationally, internationally recognized institution. Everybody knows this is the best here in Rhode Island School of Design. So look forward to hearing the input from President Maida. So I know there's a list of speakers here. I'll also announce that here, or seen at our gateways in Rhode Island, we're trying to beautify our gateways into Rhode Island, whether it's Route 24, or whether it's Route 6 coming in from Connecticut, obviously 195. If you come in from Fall River and New Bedford, you see our mural up, the beautiful mural we put up as you come into Rhode Island. So we want to beautify our gateways, put up more murals. It's all part of my commitment to public arts, and look forward to your input on that also. Coming in from Pawtucket, that's our most challenging gateway. You come out of more rural Massachusetts, and you come through Attleboro, Mansfield, Foxborough, and it's fairly rural woods, and then bam! Not only you hit with Pawtucket and Central Falls, but you also have the S-curves. And that's a challenge for us. We want to try and beautify that. I like challenges, and that is one. The S-curves have the chevrons that kind of shield the murals that you look across as you come through the S-curves. They have those chevrons, they call them, for traffic safety. But we're going to get by that and get those some of those walls, which attract graffiti, by the way. It's a twofer. Not only do it's actually a threefer. We beautify, but we discourage graffiti, because taggers really, they like blank spaces, and then it puts artists to work. So thank you very much.
What I want to do is take a moment now and give an example that I alluded to before of how a state can take positive action to enhance the arts. It's hard to believe, but in 1996, we developed the first tax incentives program for the arts. Providence, the city of Providence was the leader. Senator Mary Ellen Goodwin, my colleague, Leader Fox, were both in the General Assembly then, and they created the very first artist district in the city of Providence. And it didn't take long before quite a number of other communities followed. And we found very quickly that these artists create jobs within creative industries, and they support state tourism. They enhance critical auxiliary industries such as design and visual arts, and are crucial for the future success of our knowledge economy. Currently, just some facts and figures. Rhode Island's creative sector encompasses over 3,248 arts-related businesses that employ more than 13,000 individuals. Despite the lingering effects of the recession on most sectors of the economy, the creative sector in Rhode Island added 770 jobs and enjoyed 16% growth between 2011 and 2012. Going back even further to the very start of the recession, the creative sector has posted a 52% growth rate and a 13% gain in jobs. I think the expression that's been used is play to your strengths. And if it was ever applicable, I think it's applicable here. I believe that we can work together to figure this out. One of the things that the speaker and I have been up against is since the creation of that first art district, then we had Newport and Pawtucket, I don't know who came first, and Westerly. And then we've had numerous other communities. And at some point last year, what starts happening is one community, one arts district starts worrying, will the other art district hurt them? Will it help them? You start with the competition between the cities and towns. We're much too small for that. And that's part of the incentive for bringing us all together as well. And we have finance chairs that get tired of so many districts that at some point they looked at us, and mine own did, I'll talk for Dan DePon, he looked at me, he's like, why don't we just do this statewide? And then as the discussion grew, remember we had the birds chirping that nobody had appreciated at the courthouse because we have monies that go from the bond issues. So we have those monies. And I said, well, we have those monies that we invest in the art. Then the speakers fought very hard for the monies, as I've said, for the water fires. So we've had all these initiatives that are all over the place. Today, I'm hoping we can come together. I want to recognize the senators that are either here or they're going to be here in a few minutes. And I do want to take this moment to say it's miserable out there. We had a blizzard this weekend. The turnout here is tremendous, and I thank all of you. We have Majority Leader Dominic Ruggiero, Finance Committee Chairman Dan DePont, Senator Pichardo, Senator Miller, Senator Nesselbush, Senator DePalma, Senator Picard, Senator Sheehan, Senator Lynch, and Senator Golden. With that, I want to introduce the speaker, who I've mentioned already, was a leader on the First Arts District. He was also had a firm commitment to water fire. And on a personal note, even though he's a Massachusetts artist, he did a lot of art for Rhode Island. At Christmas time, he gave me a beautiful print from Adam Cariulo. So as a true appreciative person of arts and our Rhode Island design, please give a warm welcome to my colleague, Speaker Fox.
Hey, good afternoon to everyone. And thank you all for being here. I know that the governor and Madam President, as she normally does, covered just about everything. But I wanted to welcome you personally. I also want to welcome, it is a awful day and it's been a bad weekend here. So I want to thank you all for being here. I want to also thank House Majority Leader Mattiello, Representative Ferry, and Representative Finn. Thank you all for being here today, along with all the artists. Most importantly, and I don't know if all of you artists realize this, you are an economic engine. Do you realize that? You're an economic engine. Our job is here tonight, quite simply, is how do we pick your brains to do it better? Because that's what this year is all about. It is about economic development. It's about taking the resources we have and doing a better job with them, making Rhode Island stronger economically. We had a 5-hour economic summit at the State House, at the Rhode Island College, and we had Massachusetts economic guru come down, Secretary Bielicki, and he talked about Rhode Island playing to its strengths. And one of the areas he talked about as a strength that Rhode Island should play to is the arts. And we heard the governor and President Paiva say the same. It is an economic engine. It makes Rhode Island a better place. We all know this. But are we doing the best job coordinating the activities? Are we making the investments in the right way? Senate President Paiva gave a perfect example as we did arts districts, very wonderful idea. But on an ad hoc basis, does it make sense? Or does it set areas of the state up to compete with one another rather than maximizing Rhode Island's methodologies of competing both nationally and, in many cases, globally? So I thank you all for being here today at Fidelity. I thank all the members, all the hosts, Fidelity itself, Randy Rosenbaum at the Arts Council doing a great job, Neil Steinberg at Rhode Island Foundation, always there, ready, willing, and able to participate. But it really is about you. Those of you choosing to take part in the charrette, to breakout sessions, to ultimately report back to us, what do you feel we can do better to maximize Rhode Island as an arts destination? What do you feel are the best tools that work for you to create jobs, for you to do what you do best, which ultimately translates into a better, stronger Rhode Island? So thank you for your input. Thank you for sharing with us. And I pledge to you, as the members of the House and Senate President Paiva and the members of the Senate who are here, we will take your ideas, your thoughts seriously, and we will come up with a blueprint to make Rhode Island a stronger place to live, work, and thrive economically, and the arts are a big part of that. So thank you very much.
So one thing I've been learning over the past couple of years in politics is if you have an acronym, it's a little bit catchier. So as I introduce our next speaker, someone suggested that given the national educational emphasis on STEM, which is, for those of you who might not know, is science, technology, engineering, and math, I think that particularly given the arts district and given the knowledge district and the important role the next speaker's institution plays there, we might be able to call it STEAM. And that would mean to add the arts, encouraging creativity and innovation in the next generation. I can't think of an institution that does more to do just that than the Rhode Island School of Design. And it's my pleasure to introduce President Maida. Welcome, President.
Well, it's an honor to follow the governor, the Senate president, and the House Speaker. It's kind of nerve-wracking, actually, having our leaders here and addressing all of you. I want to reflect a bit about the acronym. RISD stands for Rhode Island School of Design, and I consider every time RISD appears anywhere in the world, we are advertising our state, and I'm very proud of that. And this morning, when I was coming here, I wanted to kind of get some kind of a notion from one of our great faculty members. Does anyone know Michael Fink? Mike Fink. So Mike Fink is one of our great faculty members. Mike Fink is a young man. Yes, he's very young, but he's been teaching at RISD for over 40 years. And he's a professor of English. And you wonder, why is this professor so famous at RISD? He's not an art and design professor. And well, he is our history. And not just our history. He's a history of Rhode Island in so many ways. Roger Williams, a figure that we know here in the state, but also nationally and internationally. I asked Mike to share some words about Roger Williams, and he says, in a very long message, a small excerpt here, "When I drive or stroll around the borders of Rhode Island, I take note of the houses built at the start of the colonial settlement. They are very beautiful, with the fine floorboards, the handsome hearths, the logical little windows, and welcoming doorways. Our campus is Rhode Island, grew from it and into it. When we celebrate Roger Williams, we are making a pilgrimage into our cultural past, steeped in the very aims of artists among us, the voice, the hand, the eye, a reflection and inspiration. Anyway, we were taught that the word for an ally and neighbor is nitop. What cheer nitop meant, let's be friends. I believe that our greatest resource, our greatest strength is the people in this room and outside this room. This room created what I believe is our first national education movement around art, the STEM to STEAM movement. Christine over there and the Science Technology Advisory Committee, working with Babette Alina, our head of government relations, have crafted, with all of your help in so many different ways, this STEM to STEAM idea, which Representative Jim Langevin led wholeheartedly, such that now, on February 14th, we are launching the bipartisan STEAM Congressional Caucus. And that came from this state. It is a message that is felt nationally now. People are seeing art as an economic engine because of simple facts. The simple fact is, RISD has always served our state. RISD was founded upon the idea that if you can design something better, you will have something people want even more. That goes back to the textile industry. And now in the digital age, we are making an impact for our state. And I ask all of you to join in the excitement around this, because it means so much for our country right now, and it's coming from our state leadership, and all of you here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Maida, and thank you for all the contribution which RISD makes to our state. Fostering a vibrant and expanding arts community in Rhode Island, leveraging that talent to improve Rhode Island's economy will require a concerted effort, as I've said earlier. Our next speaker is an invaluable partner in this effort. Please welcome Neil Steinberg from the Rhode Island Foundation.
Thank you. It's great to be here. You know, the Rhode Island Foundation, in all of our work, whether it's fundraising or grant making or leadership and advocacy, always make sure that the arts and our arts and culture are right up near the front. It's very important that we commit, and we are committed to building this important sector. You've heard a lot from this great group, and one of the things that I always like to point out is that this is another one of those only in Rhode Island meetings. We've got the governor, the Senate president, the speaker, the head of the best art school in the world, a world-class financial institution hosting us. All of you here 2 days after a blizzard, and I'd be remiss, Governor, if I didn't say kudos for making sure we could all get here on the highways and everything. You can't do that in any other state in the United States, and that's what we have here. The arts are vibrant, and you've heard a lot, and you're going to hear more about how key the arts and all of you are to economic development. And it really is a twofer. It's the jobs that the sector creates and grows, and it's the quality of life that you provide for people that come here. The arts really are key for Rhode Island as a place for people to stay and a place for people to come to. And we have a unique opportunity, the leadership here today, the Senate President convening everybody and the commitment here to really take that to the next level. So the foundation is committed to this. We will work together with everybody, and thank you all for being here.
So, most businesses, no matter what they make or what they sell, must recognize the value of art and design. Consider, for example, Apple, a global leader in technology and innovation, whose success in some ways hinged on aesthetics and originality. We are fortunate to be holding this event today, and another major business that recognizes the critical role that the arts play in our lives, in our workforce, and in our economy. I am pleased to introduce the Fidelity Investments Art Curator, Carol Warner. Welcome, Carol.
I don't know which. I'm honored to be among such a distinguished group of Rhode Island leaders to highlight Fidelity's involvement and commitment to the arts. As a 30-year-plus head curator for a collection of art that is significant and diverse, I can truthfully state that Fidelity has a deep and long history of commitment to the arts. We've long felt that contemporary artwork on the walls in our offices enhances the space and invigorates our employees. One of the guiding principles of the collection is that we support local artists wherever we have a business presence. Within the United States, this includes 10 regional campuses, and this site is one of our campuses, as well as 180 customer branches or investor centers throughout the country. Our Smithfield facility is a great example of our support of the arts and local artists. Within the 3 buildings that comprise this campus, we currently have almost 1,200 pieces of artwork made by 433 different artists installed inside and throughout the surrounding landscape. Of the 843 pieces of artwork in public spaces in these buildings, over 62% of the artists who made these pieces currently live in Rhode Island or have a Rhode Island connection. They either attended school in Rhode Island with RISD students leading the numbers, or have previously lived or taught fine arts in the state. We collect the work of artists in depth across multiple phases of their production, and we continue to offer them support over time. I hope you'll have an opportunity to see some of the collection while you're here. The majority of Fidelity's artwork in this campus is purchased through Rhode Island galleries, nonprofit programs like Providence Art Windows, or directly from the artists. Historically, we have sponsored temporary outdoor sculpture installations by RISD students on the campus. The students in an advanced class were required to put together a proposal for a temporary installation piece, and our curator for the site, Diana Gaston, would review the proposals and select the 2 most viable candidates. In some cases, the work did not come to fruition, as in the case of the labyrinth, comprised of hundreds of bulbs, tulip bulbs, that were planted in the fall and that unfortunately the local turkeys ate before they had a chance to bloom in the spring. In addition to the temporary student outdoor work, we have commissioned several notable Rhode Island artists to create more major site-specific works. These artists include Hank Gilpin, Jane Masters, Jay Coogan, Peter Stemple, and Jonathan Bonner. The purchase of their work and work by non-commissioned artists who have art in the collection enhances the Fidelity space, but it also has enabled these artists to buy new printers or tools, purchase land for building a studio, and fund their research. The collection in the Smithfield campus is an active part of the site experience for our associates, clients, and members of the community. Tours of the collection are provided to local employees as well as to employees from other regions who are attending large internal conferences. Artists are invited to come speak about their work, and we also provide recordings of artists speaking about their work that can be accessed using a phone number on the wall label. The corporate curator's office sends out a daily blog to over 600 employees about pieces in the collection, interesting articles about the art world, factoids, and regular blogs for the various regions detailing current museum exhibits or art fairs that might be of interest to employees. There's also a brochure for employees who wish to take a self-guided tour of our permanent outdoor sculpture collection located around the campus. We open the campus to school children in various ways. This includes an annual career exploration day for approximately 75 middle school students who visit the campus to learn more about the variety of career paths within a financial institution. These students are given a tour of this building with special attention given to several of the larger pieces in the collection, like the Dean Snyder stainless steel spider web that's in the stairway and the Jane Masters etched metal plates that are in the cafeteria that you walked by in the cafeteria. We also hold an annual Youth Art Month in March. This event this year will be our 14th year holding the event. Over 150 works of art from local students from kindergarten to grade 8 will be on display in the cafeteria, and students and their parents attend a reception showcasing the students' work. The art collection is integral to the buildings and outdoor space and has become a part of employees' daily work experience. We've been told by many employees that they've used the wall labels to track down information on a particular artist and have ended up purchasing work for themselves from that because of that wall label. We know that the collection has an impact on our employees, our visitors, artists' careers, and the larger arts community. We're proud of our commitment to the arts and are glad that today's meeting is bringing together leaders of the Rhode Island government and cultural institutions to brainstorm on how the arts can benefit the state. I look forward to the discussion, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, John, and thank you to Fidelity for hosting this today. Gosh, just being here with all you folks, I can feel the dormant creative side of my brain working. Now, Governor, you were talking about gateways, and you were just talking about that artist. When you come into Newport, and I'm saying this because there's some folks who could actually put this together here from Newport County, we always plant daffodils. I have a vision of a pineapple there at our gateway out of daffodils, so that's your task. The next two speakers today will elaborate on our mission today. Believe it or not, it wasn't easy for me to do, but I actually invited the budget guy. Peter Marino, the director of the Governor's Office of Management and Budget, will give us a brief overview of the current state investments in the arts. I hope after his presentation, some ideas may flow with regard to these investments. And I'll do that now. I'll do that now, and then I'll introduce Randy. Please come up, Peter. Give a warm welcome to Peter.
Yes, you hear from the Rhode Island School of Design, the arts curator, and now I get to do the sexy stuff about tax credits and stuff. Actually, my first experience or introduction to arts in Rhode Island was when I was in the budget office, a young whippersnapper, and I met Iona Dobbins. And she poked me with her cane for every day that she saw me because we cut the arts by a couple $1,000s. And she threatened, and she did, call my mother in Virginia saying, "Your son cut the arts." So, with that, since then a lot has changed from the early 90s. A lot of things have happened that hopefully that you can take advantage of and maybe expand on as you try to figure out a way to develop the arts. It's going to touch on 5 things that are really available through the process that the state offers and resources that might be helpful to you. The first one's probably the easiest one to get your hands around, and that is tourism dollars. The state invests a number of dollars to expand exposure to the state, and it does. If you pay attention to what is used, a lot of it focuses on the historic places and the arts community in Rhode Island to bring people and businesses here. So the $1 million that the governor has in his budget is directed towards tourism and trying to attract people using the arts as one of those lures, so to speak, to bring people here. The second is the tax-free arts districts, which the Senate President and the governor touched on briefly. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these in a second. The second or the third is the motion picture and film and what I call the theatrical production tax credit. That's quite a mouthful. The president also mentioned the allocation in the Art for Public Facilities, which has been around for a little while and uses capital dollars to invest in public facilities. And lastly, which Randy I'm sure will touch base on a little bit, is the Council on the Arts and the resources they bring to bear for all of you so that you can be successful. First, let's talk a little bit about the art districts. And I'm not going to go into a lot of tax detail, but it'll give you a flavor for what's out there. In 1996, as the president mentioned, Rhode Island was the first state in the country to establish tax-free arts districts. And since then, it has grown. There's somewhere close to a dozen communities that have an art district in one shape or another. And really, they take the form of 2 ways, or they take advantage of both. A personal income tax credit and a sales tax credit. And how they work is essentially like this. In 2010, we had about 47 to 50 individuals take advantage of the personal income tax credit. And what that is, it allows artists who live and work in those districts to take advantage of the personal income tax credit so that any one-of-a-kind art that they sell while they're in that district allows them to take an income tax exemption related to that sale. Similarly, the sales tax credit is designed the same way. If you live and reside and work and sell your one-of-a-kind art in those art districts, you can take advantage of a sales tax exemption for their original works. Interestingly enough, we have a little bit of information, but not a lot, about how people respond to this tax incentive. As I said, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 people in 2010, individuals that took advantage of the personal income tax exemption. While it wasn't a lot of money, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $18,000 that ranged from artists. Clearly, people are beginning to look at this as an advantage to begin investing and taking advantage of it. On the sales tax, there's about 175 individuals or businesses that took advantage of the sales tax exemption. Unfortunately, given the way we collect sales tax data, there really isn't good information associated with that. One of the things about the tax district that's interesting is there used to be a sunset provision on it. And the General Assembly removed that sunset provision that was once put in for the year 2000, and that was removed. And then since then, we've seen a growth of the tax districts, and we now have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 or so. You should know that in the last legislative session, there were proposals, as the leaders here discussed, to expand this. A number of communities were looking to take advantage of the art districts and expand their access to this so they can grow their arts community as well. And while they hadn't seen the momentum yet, as the president discussed, this is something they're going to take very seriously over the next legislative session. To move on to the motion picture and musical and theatrical production tax credit, I'm going to have to practice to say that because that's a long one. The state essentially offers a 25% tax credit for those items or production costs attributable to expenditures related to the state. Now, there's a lot of provisions within here that allows you to do a lot of different things, but one of the aspects is it's capped currently at $15 million. And right now, one single project or initiative can only be up to $5 million. However, in the General Assembly, when they passed this cap, they also said if there's a project that the tax administrator can see that there's additional tax credits available, as long as they stay within the $15 million, they can go beyond the $5 million cap. So there is some flexibility there. Through November of 2012, the Television and Film Office indicates that about $71 million in tax credits have been issued to date. That represents somewhere in the neighborhood of somewhere between $280 and $300 million in total production activity. So you can see that that certainly had an impact on expenditures in the state. Just recently, the musical and theatrical production credits were added to this program in 2012, and allows those productions to receive a tax credit as well, as long as it's within the $15 million overall tax credit. It allows for any qualified costs pre or post Broadway production held in qualified production facilities in Rhode Island. And as I mentioned, it is within the existing $15 million cap. While I can provide you more details on the tax credit itself, and we'll be happy to talk about it later as you work through the issue. I know you're short on time, so you want to get to the nitty-gritty. The allocation for art and public facilities. This is one that I was actually directly involved in in the 90s, working with the General Assembly. And since 1998, the state has spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $6.5 to $7 million on this program. And what this program really requires is if the state invests with bond money to build or renovate a major facility, 1% of those resources have to be set aside to use for public art in those facilities. There are options if it's a small enough investment, if it's not enough to have public art in that particular operation, it can be used for another facility under certain circumstances. The last one is the Council on the Arts. And Randy's shop, which runs on a budget currently of about $4 million, about half of that, 1.6 million is general revenue, operates a wide range of services and programs for artists in their communities, ranging from direct grants to support. And Randy's operation does a great job of providing that kind of insight for all of you out there. The 2014 budget represents somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million. About $1.3 million of that is general revenue. Just for some information about how the Council on the Arts has assisted folks out there, is about 33,000 artists were employed or engaged in programs that were supported by RISCA. About 2.2 million people attended or participated in arts programs supported by the Council on the Arts. So you can see with a relatively modest budget, and I believe you have 6 FTEs, 7 FTEs? 6. Yep, 6 FTEs, used to be 7. I'm not sure who did that.
14.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly provide a wide range of services on a staff that has to stretch its resources throughout to provide you with that. One last thing is the Office of Management and Budget. We are working with the Council on the Arts and others to develop community impact analysis. Oftentimes people say, what is the real result of the investment you make? And it's really hard to determine that. So we are making a concerted effort working with the Arts Council and others to try and develop better measures so that when you make the argument, when you use the numbers such as the governor recognized in some of the national studies, we want to be able to say from our perspective, here's what we really think the investment has been, what the return on investment has been. And that's a compelling argument to continue to get the investments in the arts. So with that, Governor, Madam President, Speaker Fox, I hope that gives a quick overview. And I'm looking forward to the charrettes.
Thank you. And with that, thank you. I don't know, Peter, you just got a bunch of artists in a room to clap for the budget guy. So we must be doing something right at the state level. Before the speaker, the governor, and I turn this over to Randy, I hope that you recognize we all have staff here today. We all have people here that'll be participating in some way or fashion. And I hope that we've demonstrated our commitment to you. But we do hope that you recognize the theme, that this is about economic development. It's about using our dollars wisely, investing them wisely, looking at what we're investing now, marketing, and coming up with a comprehensive industry-wide plan. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Randall Rosenbaum from the Rhode Island State Council of the Arts. He's worked tirelessly to help put this program together today, and I hope you all have a chance to take a good look at the information that's been provided in your binders. So please join in giving me a warm welcome, with me in giving a warm welcome to Randy Rosenbaum.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And it's a delight to follow Pete Marino, who was the budget analyst in the budget office when I first came to the Arts Council. A great supporter of the arts, if I may say so, Pete. Good afternoon, everyone. Governor, Senate President, Mr. Speaker, and all the distinguished guests and participants. I have to confess I'm having a bit of a pinch me moment. This past month, I celebrated my 18th anniversary as director of the greatest agency in the greatest state in the Union. For years, my mantra has been, the arts are important for the economic vitality of Rhode Island, the education of all Rhode Islanders, and the quality of life we enjoy here in the Ocean State. A gathering like this, with its focus on the role the arts can and should play in the economic strategy of our state, is exciting And I speak for the arts community when I say we wholeheartedly support any effort to grow the arts community and the role it plays in all three of these important areas. There's no question that the arts are an important part of the Rhode Island economy. You see it in Providence when the arts are in full swing, with restaurants and bars and parking garages full to overflowing. You see it in Woonsocket. When the Stadium Theater is busy, the restaurants and local businesses are happy. We've got the restored Odeum Theater in East Greenwich, the new Ocean State Theater Company on Jefferson Boulevard in Warwick, the potential that comes from the restored United Theater in Westerly, and the important project that is the Opera House on Washington Square in Newport. We have museums, the Newport Art Museum, the RISD Museum, the rejuvenated Warwick Art Museum, and special places like the Tamaqua Indian Memorial Museum in Exeter. These are all destinations for Rhode Islanders and visitors alike, and all contribute to our economy. So why isn't it better understood, and more importantly, why aren't we all working together to ensure that the arts are on the same page as partners and collaborators with an overarching state economic development strategy? That is what we're here to talk about today. While I'm hoping today is all future-oriented, what we can do from this point forward to make things better, it's useful to just say a few words about what's been holding us back. I'm going to phrase this as 3 things that might help ensure success. First, we need to know just what we mean when we talk about the arts and their contribution to Rhode Island's prosperity. This means we need data at the local level. We need benchmark information, and we need to be able to use that information to appropriately invest and help us understand when we are being successful. We've taken some important steps in this direction with the establishment of the Rhode Island Cultural Data Project in partnership with the Rhode Island Foundation and the Rhode Island Council for the Humanities. We have a great deal of useful information that will help us chart the growth of the nonprofit arts community in our state, and we're excited by its potential. But we also need to access to the best kinds of information, particularly information about the arts sector from the State Department of Revenue. This, along with data on those sectors affected by arts activity, like the hospitality industry, may help us measure the financial impact of the Newport Music Festival or a new production at Trinity Rep, and may also help us think strategically about how to encourage and support more programs that have a positive impact on our economy. Second, we need to realize that Rhode Island is a destination for many cultural tourists and can be a greater presence in this area if we work more productively together to promote and market what we have to offer our region, our nation, and beyond. I'm delighted that Governor Chafee has proposed additional funding for the State Tourism Division in his proposed 2014 budget. This is a great and important move in the right direction. I hope it allows us to work together, all of us, and do a better job of promoting the Ocean State as a destination for people interested in seeing what we have to offer and willing to spend the dollars to enjoy it. One idea that has been proposed is extending our current Arts District legislation statewide. Senate President touched on this earlier. And making it possible to purchase original or limited edition works of art tax-free anywhere in Rhode Island. Combined with a thoughtful, strong marketing campaign, I believe such a move would make Rhode Island a destination for the millions of Americans who purchase art on a regular basis. And to comfort our friends in the Department of Revenue, I can say that with some notable exceptions, these purchases tend to be modest expenditures, not likely to lose the state much in tax revenue, but positioned to gain a lot in the restaurants that art buyers are visiting, the hotels they stay in, and so on. Third, we need to recognize that we have a creative economy here in Rhode Island that should be represented in every discussion and decision being made on statewide or local economic development efforts. I tend to focus on the nonprofit arts community, our orchestras and ballet companies and dance companies and museums and so on. But we are a state of designers and architects and creative entrepreneurs who need to feel that they are part of this discussion as well. We have extraordinary colleges and universities. Rhode Island College, University of Rhode Island, Roger Williams, Bryant, and of course Brown University and the incomparable Rhode Island School of Design. Let's all be part of the conversation, and let's all pull in the same direction. I call your attention to the wonderful workbook that has been put together for today's meeting. If you look over my white paper, you'll see 5 strategies set forth by the National Governors Association in its excellent publication, Arts and the Economy, Using Arts and Culture to Stimulate State Economic Development. This came out last year by the National Governors Association as part of its Best Practices series. There are excellent starting points for this kind of work. They are, first, understand your state's cultural industries, incorporate the arts and culture into statewide planning, develop strategies to provide support for the arts and culture sector, incorporate the arts into community development planning, and finally, incorporate the arts into a state tourism strategy. I hope we can touch on all of these in the work that lies ahead. One last important point. The Rhode Island State Council on the Arts is not an economic development agency. We exist, in the words of the General Assembly, to ensure that the role of the arts in the life of Rhode Island communities will continue to grow and will play an ever more significant part in the welfare and educational experience of our citizens. Economic development is the happy byproduct of what we do. But in partnership with the agencies in and out of state government that are concerned with economic development and tourism and cultural heritage, much more can be done. We bring these strengths to the table, we each bring these strengths to the table, but we all need to be at the table together. Thank you for being here and for what you will contribute to this new direction. You want me to set the stage now? Okay, so what's our charge today? There is a great deal of creative energy in the room. We're asking you to use that energy to help us explore 3 questions related to the role the arts can play in economic development. Those questions, question number 1, follow along. In what ways can Rhode Island distinguish itself from other states to become a state of the arts? What steps can Rhode Island take to create a distinction as a state of the arts using all of the arts community? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what specific tools, and you've heard some of them discussed today, tax credits, investment strategies, bonding, any number of things, can government employ to encourage growth and jobs in the arts sector? Question 3, how can nonprofit organizations, government, business, and academic institutions work together to market, incent, support, and grow the arts sector in Rhode Island? So what we're going to do, when we're finished here, you can go out, get something to eat, then move into the next room. There is a set of tables set up in the next room. Question number 1, if that strikes your interest, will be covered at tables 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a sign as you go in, so you'll be able to figure this out. Question number 2, the specific tools question, is being covered at tables 5, 6, 7, and 8. Question number 3, how we can all work together, that's tables 9, 10, 11, and 12. Choose your table. If it is misbalanced in any way, we reserve the right, the organizers, to move you to balance up the numbers. But we want you to be happy where you're situated. So we'll do that in the rarest of circumstances. Each table will have a moderator, highly trained moderator, trained by Mary Kim Arnold from the Rhode Island Foundation. So they'll be exquisitely prepared, whose job it will be to keep the conversation going and to also act as scribe at your table. What we will eventually want to get out of your discussion are the 3 top, strongest points you want to make on this question. Each table may have a different take. Each table may miraculously come up with the same set of responses. That's great too. When we're finished, each moderator will report out on the 3 top choices that they have come up with. In the front of the room, we will have what I'm calling graphic recorders. These are artists, Rhode Island artists, who are highly trained in listening to report outs or discussions and then graphically representing what you have talked about. I actually became familiar with this technique because I have a daughter with disabilities, and this is used in a program called PATH for people with disabilities to chart their life goal. And so we're incorporating it into this project. And we'll be working with artists Diane Westerman, Ken Renaud, and Kim Pinkshaw. I'm delighted that today's session is being recorded by Capital TV. We are setting up a special website on the State Arts Council webpage, and we'll provide all of the feedback, the information, the graphic images, and the video that is generated from this as the first step toward an ongoing conversation. So with that, I'd like to thank certainly Governor Chafee, Senate President Paiva-Weed, Speaker Fox, the other speakers on this dais. I love the fact that we have a corporate curator in the room. I hope it inspires other Rhode Island businesses, large and small. And I'd like to, I will thank the other organizers as we go through the afternoon. My job in all of this is to keep you on time and keep you on task. So thank you so much for being here. We're now going to dismiss you to go out and grab something to eat and to move into the next room.
As I was walking through Dublin City, about the hour of 12 at night, it was there I spied a fair, pretty female washing her feet by candlelight. First she washed them, then she dried them over a fire of amber coals. And in all my life I never did meet a maid so neat about the souls. She had 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 9. She had 19, 17, 15, 13, 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and 1. I stopped to look, but the watchman passed. Said he, young fella, now the night is late, and away with your home, or I will wrestle you straight away to the bridewell gate. I got a look from the Spanish lady, hard as a fire of amber coals. And in all my life I never did meet a maid so neat about the souls. She had 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 9. She had
We're going to focus first on question one. And to remind you, at least those of you who haven't been grappling with question one is, in what ways can Rhode Island distinguish itself from other states to become a state of the arts? What steps can Rhode Island take to create a distinction as a state of the arts in theater, music, museums, dance, etc.? Who over here wants to start?
That a priority in terms of education is a much broader access to arts education in schools and any other type of environment possible. But that, along with that, at the same time, it is certainly an emphasis on depth of knowledge in the arts, because just a brief exposure once a week, a few minutes at a time, is not enough to build full civic engagement in the arts in Rhode Island for young people and as they become full citizens here in Rhode Island. a resource in this regard is definitely a shift in mandate from a testing initiative in terms of education in Rhode Island to something that far more supports the kind of proficiencies that being an arts maker or being arts audience leads to. Secondly, incubation projects came up as a priority, and also at that point, a discussion of taking a look at Rhode Island, not only for its size, but also for its regional assets, that it's possible that you could look at different parts of the state and see depth of experience and excellence in a variety of different kinds of art forms in different parts of the state. And then thirdly, to make the most of our size, not only in terms of arts density, but also in terms of arts excellence, leading to somewhat of a brand and a distinguished status, not so much as a state of the arts, but perhaps the art state.
The first thing that we talked about was branding also, but what we wanted to emphasize was that anytime you create a brand, you want to make sure that there's meat on the bones of that particular brand. So you can put many arts district banners up on light posts throughout a city, but we wanted to keep in mind as we had this discussion that it needs to go deeper than that. So that was our first point. So then we talked about taking the invisible and giving it the tools to make itself visible, and giving artists who are relatively invisible the tools to make themselves more visible. So Rhode Island's artists, we characterized some of them as kind of scrappy and entrepreneurial, and able to sustain themselves despite cuts to our state arts budget, and we think that's wonderful. We want to make sure that we find ways to continue to support those artists and their projects, and we spoke about a couple areas in particular, including the industrial arts and the folk arts, which Rhode Island has a real wealth in, but that isn't necessarily known for. So again, we want to talk about taking the invisible and giving it the tools to make itself more visible. And finally, the last thing that we also talked about was education, as well as equity and access. So when we talk about the state of the arts in Rhode Island, we want Rhode Island to be known as a place that doesn't just prioritize artists and audiences that are already affluent, that are already supporting themselves through their arts, but we're talking about making sure that the next generation of artists is growing up in Rhode Island and not just coming from out of state to go to great institutions like RISD and Brown, but that our own local youth are coming up and getting an opportunity to make their mark artistically on the state.
We like to think that our state is local. So we talked a lot about ways that we can cross borders and the ways that artists do that not everybody else always does. So some of the things that we talked about were identifying the hidden gems in our community, finding a way to brand, which we've been hearing about a lot, and also creating sort of a central portal where people can go to get information about all the arts happenings that are going on in our small state, our local state, our neighborhoods. Also, we see that our diversity is something that we can really celebrate. We love the idea. We got excited about the idea of our size really being a driver for us. That even as we talked about artist nights in different towns across the state, we thought, hey, let's get RIPTA involved and market to the world that you can travel, all over the state and have dinner in one place, a show someplace else, see a museum someplace else. We thought that would be really a lot of fun.
The example of the size of the state being an asset, but in particular we talked about the continuity of the visual branding in such a way that people can actually from outside know at any given time when they have come in specifically to an arts district. And the other area of visual branding and PR branding that we talked about is attempting to utilize two strengths of the state, the restaurant and hospitality portion of the state, to tie it to the arts in terms of national publicity. We have an enormous number of people in the national media who have some tie to Rhode Island, but we have very little in the way of a concerted effort to bring them together to showcase what's happening in Rhode Island. And so we wondered if there isn't a possible way of loosely coordinating efforts to tie hospitality and our own PR industry, of which we have quite a few firms that are extremely well known nationally. A second issue that we talked about is to look at other cities that successfully do this, or localities that successfully do this, in terms of how do these other arts cities create success, and to learn from that process in some ways, which is not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but looking at a Brooklyn or a Portland or any of the other cities which consistently receive enormous amounts of national attention from the media and are of a size, a comparison to places like Rhode Island as a totality or Providence. And the third area that we talked about in education was the curriculum-based programs to foster awareness from small children through the system. Imagining that we are going to, as much as possible, put back in those curriculum-based programs so that we imagine it as a pipeline over a period of time where we're bringing in the youngest into a larger project of, in essence, creating the brand of Rhode Island state arts state.
Ken Renaud has been busily graphically recording this and will be working on it, I think, as we continue to work. Let's go to question number 2. What specific tools, and we mentioned several, tax credits, investment strategies, bonding, so on and so forth, can government employ to encourage growth and jobs in the arts sector? Who wants to jump on that first? Why don't we start with this table?
First, we want to expand the idea of tax credits to talk about creative economy zones or enterprise zones with all kinds of tax issues being dealt with. For example, Ocean State Theater Company has enormous property taxes paid perhaps by their landlord, but that get passed on to the theater company. What about the performing arts? Looking at performing arts corollaries to the tax credits that are now part of what visual artists get, but really expanding that whole notion to how do you make, similar to what this table talked about, creative placemaking, creative economy zones, and looking at all the tax issues and tax incentives that might make that happen. Number 2 was to become competitive with our neighbors in Massachusetts, raising or getting rid of the cap for the film and TV tax credits because it's really slowing the film industry down in this state. Number 3, and I didn't say this even though I'm a RISCA staff member, so I just want to say that, was restore RISCA's discretionary grant budget to its glory of former years, but specifically to help small arts businesses grow and to support arts education. Things like K-16, career pathways for young people in arts and design, innovative teachers using STEM to STEAM and arts integration, smart schools, lots of ways that we could specifically invest in those things through the Arts Council's budget.
We had a couple of things. We looked at tax, the issue of tax credits and tax policy, and we thought that really we should consider revising state tax policy and tax credits to be a little more open and fair and protect, for one, all arts organizations equally from property taxes, because right now some are exempt and some are not, and also to make tax credits accessible to more arts organizations, because I would say that while they are in place right now, the majority of arts organizations cannot access tax credits to produce more productions that generate jobs and bring in audiences that spend money. We also jumped on wanting to realize the Senate President's idea of the tax-free arts state. I think that would be a great marketing tool for our galleries and for our new artists. That we've all heard about the growth in the arts industry and that there are many new artists and arts organizations out there. Do we fund them? And if so, we have to pull funding away from the historic organizations that have been the bedrock of the arts community, or do we not fund them and maintain funding for the historically strong arts organizations? And that's not a path of investment and growth. That's a path of stagnation and really, I think, will become a stale arts economy if that path is maintained. So investing in RISCA and getting that discretionary grants budget up to $1 million from its current, I believe, $590,000 would be huge. And then we also talked about the condition of arts facilities in our state. Oh, is it 0.5? Okay, I thought that was 0.3. Sorry, I was illustrating my points. I apologize. I was not a theater major. That must be the problem. Cultural facilities are tremendously important as resources to bring in audiences, and we do not have a mechanism currently for many of those facilities to be adequately maintained or built in the first place. So we need the state to work with us to play a role. There are options. There could be a cultural facilities fund. There could be a bond issue. We need to have a discussion on what is the best role for the state to play, because right now there isn't a role.
Thank you. I guess in the interest of time, our first 2 points that were already kind of covered over here with creative place-making, tax credits, property taxes, and the historical tax credits. So we're going to say that those are all really important, and we also thought so. The other point that we spoke to that I just kind of want to kind of build on over here, because it was mentioned about incubator programs, the idea of taking emerging nonprofit organizations and kind of partnering them or encouraging the partnership of them with existing successful organizations in the state with the state's encouragement, and then also possibly getting local businesses involved and giving them some incentives to do that as well. I mean, obviously there's already a lot of programs and incentives available for organizations to kind of learn about all of these tools and kind of get to the point where they're able to be sustainable on their own. But having some sort of a program that really kind of gives them these tools that after 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years, they're able to kind of, get their own wings and go off into the state and kind of continue to create and contribute to the economy. So
question 3. Question 3 is, how can nonprofit, government, business, and academic institutions work together to, wait for it, market, incent, support, and grow the arts sector in Rhode Island? Okay, who wants to start with that?
We were table 9.5. There were 3 points that we reached. The first one is incentivize the hiring of local Rhode Island artists and performers for television, radio. Incentivize the hiring of local Rhode Island artists and performers for TV, radio, and commercial work, including work for businesses, ad agencies, and political campaigns. We want to keep as much economic development in the arts as local as possible. The second is tapping into emerging markets, expose and connect cultural arts organizations with state's diverse population as a way to expand their audience and market. This would be through inclusion, programming, and exposure by partnering with nonprofit groups and government agencies that already know how to reach these population groups. And this would help the arts and cultural organizations by developing new markets for their product. And finally, create a forum where arts organizations, big and small, convene with business to network, expose, and discover the value in investing in the arts.
Our group talked a little bit about the messaging piece, and what we felt was really necessary at the beginning is that we've got to develop a shared language, and we've got to celebrate what we're already doing, and we're doing some really magnificent things. And so if we can develop that shared language of what an art state would be like, then we can articulate that to our funders. and make our funders believe. Secondly, we need to develop that unified message and a vision for the arts, not our individual missions that we already have, but a vision for a statewide arts state, and make that a priority. And then we can communicate that to our funders. And again, the third point, our funders, we need people to invest. We need people to believe, we need them to invest, and we need to make them understand how important the arts are to a community in a state like Rhode Island. So one of those things would be developing the engine, and we need not only RISCA and the arts organizations, but we need an economic development center that can support the arts and bring new business and arts to the state and make this a state for artists to live in.
I'm going to go to the table in the back there.
All right, so number one, we believe that the state needs to, or that these four groups need to create partnerships and alliances. And we've thought that this could be approached in many ways. Obviously, there's a separate commission that brings together different members of this group, but that has to be a very dedicated, probably unpaid group of people that really wants to get this done and meet regularly. This could be the separate creation of a strategic plan just for the creative arts. Or probably most important, this could actually bring arts leaders to the Economic Development Corporation so that they could be sitting at the same table. Second thing, which David Beauchesne just spoke of, is restoring the $1 million in discretionary grants to RISCA. We believe that these four groups can come together and advocate for that. We think $400,000 is a very small investment that drives a lot of additional economic activity for our state. And third, we need to create an atmosphere where the arts community can thrive. And back to David's table, the perfect example of not creating this atmosphere is creating or not creating legislation that prevents these nonprofits from having to pay undue property taxes.
Okay, to our 3 points, and by the way, we had 3 schools of higher ed here, so if there's a little bit of a bias, yes, there is. But also to, I think it was the third table there and also this table here, we really looked at understanding the arts ecosystem. What's the true economic impact and how broad is it? Because typically, and we did have a restaurant person on board, you can see him right here, typically, the ask are always to the restaurants because they feel the restaurants are making the money, and it doesn't go any further. But clearly, we know you need to cast a much wider net because the benefactors of the arts are much broader, and they're again, across the table. Number two is we all know this is a very small state, but yet we all have heard the adage of packing a bag if you're going from Westerly to Providence or Providence to Newport. But realistically, we all know that it's just that. It's an old wives' tale. And the schools should basically have traveling exhibits and performing arts. So it doesn't have to be you go to RIC to see their event. It could be RIC goes to another institution so you can see their event, and vice versa, Roger Williams University or anybody else. So traveling exhibits, traveling performing arts presentations should travel. And in our small state, there's absolutely no reason why you cannot do that. And finally, there was a unified arts calendar. Instead of every institution having his or her calendar, a unified arts calendar, web-based obviously, get some qualified IT students to sit in a room, work it out, and we thought this would be a very worthwhile endeavor for everybody to see.
This is Table 12, and they actually came up with 9 different ideas, but I'm going to be reporting out on the top 3. They talked about every city and town within the state having an arts advocate, whether that's a person or a group. They talked about those 4 groups working together to create a program for artists to have an artist in residence in every Rhode Island community. And they talked a lot, as it sounds like a lot of people in the room talked a lot about the tax credits. And this particular group talked about the importance of going beyond the visual arts to include tax credits for all artistic disciplines.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what happens now? First of all, we have our 3 graphic recorders up here who are going to be processing, continue to process what they have heard until they've created works that can reflect easily, visually, graphically, as artists are known to do, the ideas that have generated in this discussion. We're also going to keep all the material that you have created and prepared, which includes more than the 3 points that you have shared with us, so that we can provide that as a baseline kind of group of suggestions and recommendations to inform the next phase of that. Now, the next phase of this has not fully been defined yet, but its goal was to inform the work of the General Assembly, inform the work of the Governor's Office, and inform the work of the State Arts Council and others as we move forward toward anything having to do with legislation, with governmental initiatives, with collaborations. And our hope is that we can continue to bring groups of people like you together, or this group and others, to continue these conversations. Because this conversation and bringing others into the room to partake in this conversation will allow us to continue to explore, develop, advance all of the goals and objectives that we hope to achieve through this discussion. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to take all of this information, make it available on the web through the State Arts Council website, provide you with opportunities to comment and suggest, and as we take the next steps, inform you of and allow you to participate in those conversations. The goal, again, is to advance the role that the arts sector plays in the economy of the state of Rhode Island and the presence that we play in our state's life and education, quality of life, and economy of the state. So I'm going to conclude by asking our elected leadership to say a few words to thank you for your participation in this.
No, I don't know if I need a microphone. I just want,
Well, you do if you want to be heard on television.
Oh, be
There
heard
you
on
go.
television. I'm a politician. No, I just want to be informed with this. And first and foremost, I want to thank the Senate President, Teresa Piva-Weed. These are where big ideas start in very small places, including Little Newport. So phenomenal idea. But I want to especially thank each and every one of these. Are phenomenal ideas. And a couple of people apologize, like, we hope we weren't too critical or whatnot. But it's really to hear what's important to you as we build policy is, I think, more important than us thinking we have all the answers in that marble palace, I call it, and then divine them out there and think and hope that somehow they're going to work. So what you have done here tonight in terms of building policy, both in the arts community and the broader sense of our economy, is a Herculean effort. And to be here, especially in the eye of the storm we just came through, to add good humor, great ideas, and just a wonderful spirit is what makes Rhode Island special. So each and every one of you deserve a big round of applause for being here, and I thank you as a policymaker, as Speaker of the House, on behalf of the House, for being here. Thank you.
The only thing I can add to that is thanking the governor and the speaker, myself, thank all of you. I want to say, when this kind of all started, I never imagined there was so much breadth and depth of support. I never imagined whose spouse, child, the loves of the art. My legal counsel's over here. He's on the festival board. I mean, talk about a diversely made-up group. I never imagined. And I want to say this event, particularly the last 7 days, watching all of you, and today, after this storm, you've certainly made a real believer out of me tonight. And I want to just say thanks to all of you, and I look forward to working together with the governor and the speaker as we move the agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you.